Eau Claire High School Junior ROTC Facility Naming Committee. 4.04 Hopkins Elementary School Lane Facility Naming Committee. And 4.05 Procurement Review Panel Chair Appointment. Is there a motion from the board to go into public session and adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Can we adopt the agenda?
All right, we have Commissioner King move that we adopt the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a second by Commissioner Devine. Question or discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll now cast our vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, we have 6 yeas. Am I hearing Commissioner Myers on the line? Okay, that is 5 yeas, 0 nays. The ayes have it. All right, so let us go to item 4.01, which is the Columbia High School Gym Naming Facility Committee. I want to read this in for a action and a vote. Under the Columbia High School Gym Committee, we have 3 community lay citizens, which is Lynette Leland Reed, Jonathan Kirkwood, Alan Etheridge. We have 3 district staff, which is Mariah Shesweller, Jamel Carter, and Von Dre Whaley. The board member that will be appointed for this committee is Angela Clyburn. Is there a motion to accept this, a motion on the floor to name this committee?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Is there a second? We got to move, a motion moved to accept these individuals as the Columbia High School Gym Committee by Mr. Devine and second by Commissioner King. Any question or discussion? Commissioner King.
I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So I'm a little bit in the dark regarding these naming committees. So how did we come up with those names? Did I miss something where maybe some members of the community could submit an application to be nominated, or how did that work?
Dr. Witherspoon, would you like to speak to this? I believe it came from the community base.
That is correct. Mr. Chair, members of the board, for all 4 of these committees and requests, if you will, these came from the community, if you will, in all of these areas. And then in following the district policy, FF naming, as Commissioner Bishop outlined, it does speak to the composition of the committees, and the EDs of schools worked with those specific communities in terms of and school administration in terms of determining those citizens, most of which where these recommendations bubbled up from.
All right, Commissioner King, any other questions?
No.
All right. As stated, this is per policy FF, and there will be a facilitator for each one of these. For Columbia High, there will be Dr. Eunice Williams. Again, that's been said before in the vote, and with no other questions, all those in favor say aye. All right. Opposed? There's 5 yeas, 0 nays. We'll now go to item, y'all excuse me as I toggle back and forth. We're going to item 4.02, which is Dreher High School Gym Facility Naming Committee. I would like to read these names in at this time. For the community lay citizens, it'd be Jamie Langley, Shep Headley, Gloria Washington. The facilitator is Dr. Henry Cobb. The district staff is Dr. Erica Fields, Chief David Rhodes, and Cedric Tidwell. The board member assigned will be Beatrice King. Is there a motion on the floor?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Devine, second by Commissioner Harris. Question or discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, we're now casting.
Chair, I'm sorry. And I'll get back to the policy, but help me out here, probably Dr. Witherspoon. So those naming committees they have a purpose, a one-time purpose for the building for which we are seeking a name. Is that right? After which the committee will be dissolved?
That is correct. This is a single purpose committee, and the committee's work, again, as outlined in the policy, will bring a recommendation back that will come back to the board for a vote, for board approval.
Thank you for this clarification, Dr. Witherspoon.
All right, we're now at the point of the question and the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0 vote. Just for attendance purposes, is Commissioner Myers on yet? All right. Let the record show that we have 5 commissioners in attendance tonight. We're now going to the next item on the agenda, which is 4.03, Eau Claire High School JROTC Facility Naming Committee. These names on this committee is from the community lay citizens: Oliver Washington, Denise Adams, Charmaine Primus. The facilitator is Dr. Meandre Prince. The district staff is Eric Davenport, Teresa Jones, and Angela Burns. The board member assigned is Jamie Devine. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move for approval.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Clyburn. Question or discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll now cast our vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. We're now going to Hopkins Elementary Naming Committee. The community lay citizens are Ella McRant, Esther Johnson, Naomi Middleton. The facilitator is Dr. Meandre Prince. The district staff is Dr. Denise Collier, Tiffany Brooks Sims, and David Thorpe. The board member assigned is Cheryl Harris. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Devine, second by Commissioner Clyburn. Question or discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. Now we're at item 4.05, Procurement Review Panel Chair Appointment. The administration is recommending Norman Hall as chair. I'm appointing Norman Hall as chair for this procurement review panel. Is there a motion to accept?
Move to accept said names for the.
Second.
It's It's been moved by Commissioner Devine, second by Commissioner Harris. Question or discussion? Commissioner
King,
King, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, so Dr. Witherspoon, can you help me understand this one? What? I don't remember us doing this, so that's why I'm asking for a little help. If you could unmute yourself, yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
we haven't done it for a very long time. In our procurement code, speaks to a procurement review panel that we have had, quite frankly, in existence for a number of years. We just haven't had to use it. But it has been in existence, is in our procurement code, and per the procurement code that's modeled after the state code that we currently have, the chair appoints the chair of that committee. The administration works with the committee itself, but the chair of the board appoints the chair of the committee if the committee needs to work. But again, it's just in reviewing our information, we did, because of the panel being in existence, but we did have to replace some members on that committee, and thus needing a new chair. So this is replacing or the chair naming a chair of the procurement review panel.
So either the chair, it is specialized. I would imagine and would want for a number of these people to be trained in procurement laws and processes, etc. Is that the case?
That is exactly the case. Folks on the committee, as well as the recommendation for the chair, do have current or past procurement experience, professional experience.
So they just have professional experience? Do they not? Is there any training associated? I mean, continuous training, or professional development, or updating of some sort.
Well, the individuals, again, they and certainly Ms. Hall does have procurement experience training, and member of the National Association of State Procurement Officers and so forth. So there is procurement, again, training, experience, and professional work.
Okay, Mr. Chair, do you mind, or Mr. Dr. Witherspoon, do you mind saying the name again? I didn't catch it the first time for the chair.
Norma Hall.
Okay, and so she does have, but she's not an employee, right? Is she?
No.
Okay, all right, very well. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll now cast our vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? It's a 5-0 vote. The ayes have it.
Mr. Chair.
Yourself, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. It's been a while since we did this like this, so forgive me. But we have now exhausted our.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
If I could, for the facilitator for Hopkins Middle, that's going to be Derek Glover instead of Dr. Prince.
Let the record show. Yeah, Hopkins.
And Hopkins.
Hopkins Middle. Right?
Elementary.
Hopkins Elementary.
All right, let the record show.
As facilitator.
As a facilitator.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
All right. With that being said, we have exhausted our public session of our call board meeting. Is there, without no objection, we now stand for adjournment. All right. We're now entering into our work session, which is the Office of the Superintendent 7.01, ESER 3, on the Office of the Board 8.01, Policy BDEA, Audit Committee 8.02, Policy BDEF, 8.8 internal audit. 8.03 policy DJE/DJEB/DJEB/DJEBA purchasing authority quality control specifications, cooperative purchasing bid and quotations. 8.04 policy GCBE athletic assignments and salary pay. This is an agenda set before us. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move to approve the agenda as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Vine to approve the agenda as stated, second by Commissioner Clyburn. Now we'll cast our vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that is not an opposition, is it, Clyburn?
No, it's not. It was a late unmute. It's aye.
That is a 5-0 vote. The ayes have it. We'll start with item 7.01, ESER 3. Dr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. At not Tuesday's meeting, but the meeting before that, the administration did give a presentation on the ESER 3, and that is the Elementary Secondary Schools Emergency Relief Act, in terms of what we were looking at doing and proposing in terms of the state having to submit a plan for the state. But at that meeting, board members, you did provide to the administration some feedback and thoughts that we are indeed taking under consideration and looking at and making some of those tweaks based on some feedback that you all gave. So at that meeting as well, it was asked that we, during work session, we continue some discussion. So at this time, we would, the administration would certainly want to listen and see what additional feedback that you all may have at this time.
Any questions at this time regarding the ESER 3? Commissioner Vine.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Dr. Witherspoon, and to your staff, thank you for the presentation a couple weeks ago. I did ask about, and I think Ms. Harris did too, in reference to homework centers. Any additional thought given to that? I know we just mentioned it. Any additional thoughts on potentially having something to that effect?
Yes, what we wanted to do is based on, again, some of the feedback that you all gave us. We are looking into those things, but we wanted the additional feedback from this meeting to continue that work so that we could, take the feedback that you all had given us into totality, if you will, and then proceed. But we do have that on the list of areas that you all would like for us to take a look at. So and again, based on what you shared with us before and what you're sharing with us this evening, we will be staffing those and reporting back.
All right. Let me ask you this: as it pertains to McKinney-Vento for homeless families and for homeless children, homeless youth. I can't recall, did we mention anything about potentially supplying some money for McKinney-Vento education, i.e. assisting with maybe some short-term housing or reasonable options for safety for some of our children?
Now, some of these things, again, these our plans have to be approved. So whatever we submit would have to be, reviewed by the State Department and all. And there are some regulations, or, for example, depending on what we do, there has to be some evidence-based activities and so forth. And quite frankly, we'll check, but I'm not sure if that could go for rent assistance or something to that effect. That we don't know. But again, based on the feedback, we will certainly consult with State Department and see what is allowable and what's doable.
Okay, very good. I will yield the rest of my time to someone else. Thank you, Chairman Bishop.
Thank you, Commissioner Devine. Any other questions? Okay, Commissioner Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Dr. Witherspoon. Also, thank you for the presentation the other night. One of the things, and I think you've touched on it at the last meeting, was the adult ed piece and how we would strengthen that piece as it relates in the community. I know we have one main location and maybe a satellite location that may need some tweaking or some support
And
there.
we're already on that. That is correct. Yes.
That's music to my ears. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Commissioner Harris, that didn't necessarily need to be wrapped in the ESSER, but we
Right.
do have the ability to, currently
Right.
to piece that program up. So that investigation and work has begun.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner Harris. Any other questions? Commissioner King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have several questions. Dr. Witherspoon, last time we talked, and this is really great when we're adding, especially 27 social workers. We know that the need is really dire, but it was more like a one per school, and I raised the concern that if we really look at equity, this does not fit the bill for me for equity, because equity is based on needs, and this looks more like equality, like one for everybody, and it's not. Although it's great that there is an increase, I'm concerned that we're still going to have a lot of gaps in certain schools that have much greater needs than others.
And we will look at that again. This is layering. This would be in addition to what we already have. That is based on what we have. That is needs based and equity based. So this would be layering on top of that. So the staffing and personnel that we have currently will still exist in an equitable fashion as we deliver services, and we do, as things happen in various communities, we do make tweaks and so forth as we go. So that will still be the case.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm just not seeing it, because it's so the ratio stays exactly the same instead.
No, it doesn't. If we have Summit schools now, they may indeed remain, whereas a school may not have. So if there's an equitable distribution now, and we're giving or trying to provide more to all, those that have some additional staffing because of needs will continue to have that.
The other piece is family and engagement. I know we're adding 4 family and engagement specialists, and I think that we are all in agreement here, and certainly most of our communities are in agreement and understand that it starts at home, and that schools cannot do all the work, and that we're inheriting a lot of the issues or the deficiencies that some children are having as inheritance from home environment or just an environment in general. And so that, other than family and engagement specialists, what other monies are put in what programs so that we really engage parents and increase the accountability of parents?
Well, there are
Accountability and training. I mean, it's not always a blame, right? I mean, it's filling in deficiencies and being sensitive to the needs. So that's really important.
Yeah. And there are a whole host of things we do. Everything from Thrive Richland that supports our birth to 3, birth to 4, and then moving forward. So there are a whole host of things that we do for parent engagement and parent support. as well as partnership with United Way, the RAID Act, and so forth. So there are a whole host of things that we do for supportive families, and that's something we can certainly provide some information.
Just a clarification, Dr. Witherspoon. Thrive Richmond, I thought was, how many schools are served with Thrive Richmond?
Well, it's not school based. That's from birth to 3, birth to 4. So those are our future students. So individuals do outreach and so forth, and that's going to be across a specific community. So that's going to be more widespread than a school.
Thanks. I'll yield to someone else. Thank you.
All right, any other questions at this time? Okay. Any other questions at this time? All right, seeing none, hearing none. Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, and again, appreciate this feedback. We will staff these and do follow up with you accordingly. Thank you.
All right, we're now under the office of the board, which is 8.01, policy BDEA. BDEA. This is the audit committee. Any questions in this policy at this time for the administration? Commissioner Harris.
Mr. Chair, I don't necessarily have a question for the administration, but I was the board member that asked for this policy as well as BDHA. And the reason being is, as we review the policies, I know a lot of times we discuss its relevancy, etc. And right now, the audit committee has not met since 2018. And I know that we had the audit committee established at that time for a certain purpose. And I would ask that in the next meeting that we add this policy to the agenda, because I would like to make a motion to remove this policy for the audit committee. The audit committee purpose at that time that it served with the meeting of the 3, etc. We don't do that anymore. Our internal auditor has done an excellent job with providing us information via emails. We've been able to get our questions answered. So to hang on to this policy at this present time, it has no use for the board. So I just wanted to bring that policy up. Also, when it comes to BDHA, which is the other policy that I also asked to bring forward, was to see if there was something in BDEA we may want it to have added to BDHA, but the audit committee has not functioned since 2018. That's almost 4 years. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. When I read that in, I'm going to cover your comments accordingly to item 8.02. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
All right. Any other discussions regarding these two policies? Commissioner King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I can't pull up I may just turn off my video for just a sec, just so that I can look at the policy. But the internal auditor's office has been established for a long time. I think it's important to have an audit committee, just like we have administration committee, so that the board establishes some priorities on like an audit plan and asking maybe sometimes for special audits or investigations, or just like the policy states. Actually, I thought that the revision of what has been submitted today was really excellent compared to what it was in March. So I guess maybe different board members feel differently, and that's fine. It'll come to a vote. But I do think it's important to have a policy and a committee. The committee does not have to meet regularly. It can meet on a quarterly basis. We certainly receive reports from our internal auditor. But I do think it's a really important committee, and I really think that it also instills a lot of trust from the public to know that this is a function that is alive and well, and that their school districts is working really well, and you know, at times has revisions that it needs to be made to processes or compliance, etc. But I think this is a huge public trust factor. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in response to those comments, let me just state, if you look at the responsibilities of the committee, those responsibilities are held and maintained by the entire Board of Commissioners. That is one of the reasons why the committee is no longer necessary. For instance, it says the auditing and the evaluation of the internal auditor, that's not done by the committee. That is done by the entire board. And I believe as a public trust, to see the entire board receiving the information and giving input strengthens the trust of our community. So if you look at the audit committee and all of the things that they do and the functions, the entire board is now taking on that function. We've taken on that function now for the past 4 years. And that is one of the reasons why I'm bringing this policy to you, because it is our responsibility to make sure that we have policies in place that are relevant. And this particular policy for an audit committee is no longer relevant because the entire board is functioning as the committee that evaluates the internal auditor. We all receive the reports. We all can ask for special audits. So it has no relevancy at this point in time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Commissioner King.
Maybe Ms. Harris, we started at the same time, and we were on the audit committee at the same time. So, do you mind? Do you mind reminding me why we established it in the first place? And we thought that it was necessary, and why now it's no longer necessary. Thank you.
Oh, I'll be happy to respond, Ms. King. If you recall, when we put the internal audit, the committee in place was because our board meetings were extremely long. I know those board members, Divine and Bishop, who was here with me, our audit reports lasted for hours. And that was one of the reasons why we started the audit committee, was that a selected board or group would get that information. And if we felt something was deemed necessary to come to the entire board, we would bring it forth at that particular time. But as time went by, the board saw Washington's reports being submitted to us via emails were very well put together. And we were pleased with the way that he was reporting. And there had been times when we needed information that we as a board collectively asked him to attend our meetings on Tuesday night. So it was put in place because of the length of time it was taken in our board meetings. It was taking over an hour every time. And that was one of the reasons why we put the audit committee in place, was to give the information to a subgroup. But what was decided upon by this board was to put it in writing and to give it to the board on a monthly basis. And Mr. Washington has done an exceptional job in making sure that we've got that information. And there's been times that we've needed to call him in. As a board, we've been able to do that. So right now, that internal audit committee has had no relevancy for 4 years. And by 2022, it will be 5 years that it hasn't functioned. So if you look at the responsibilities of the audit committee, all of those bullets we're currently doing right now as an entire board. The evaluations and all of those other things that it's talking about, the recommendations and so forth, we're doing all of that as an entire board. So the committee has really no bearings anymore, because we're all now fulfilling those responsibilities collectively. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? All right. Thank you so much for the healthy discussion. Look forward to future meeting to discuss item 8.01, policy BDEA audit committee. And also, I believe that discussion was germane to 8.02, policy BDHA internal auditing. Just so that we are clear, is there any other discussion about any of those two items? All right. We'll now move to item 8.03, policy DJE, DJEA, DJEB. Am I saying DJ? I'm sorry. Excuse me, everyone.
I think.
DJEBA, Purchasing Authority, Quality Control Specification, Cooperative Purchasing Bid and Quotations. Let the record show and be advised that Commissioner Myers is in the meeting. All right, anyone would like to discuss 8.03? Commissioner King.
The chair, in fact, I brought up the necessity, at least, to review this policy because right now we all know that the board, and it is stated in the procurement code, the board right now has to approve anything that's any contract that is above $50,000. What the missing part is, and I asked Dr. Witherspoon this, and I was not able to find an answer anywhere, and this is where I think that something needs to be included in the policy is, once the board approves a contract, right, and the board approves not only the contract, the dollar amount, but also a contract that has a specific scope of work. My question is, at what point after the initial approval would a change, such as an increase in the scope or a change in the scope of the contract or the dollar amount, require additional approval from the board, and what policy addresses that?
Witherspoon, would you like to respond?
Yes,
to
what generally happens, and these happen with items on a regular basis that come in front of the board. Depending on the contract or whatever, say if it's roofing or this, that, and the other, those parameters are oftentimes, or all the time, they're built into the item that we bring to you in terms of the dollar amount or scope, if it's roofing or those things that we give a dollar amount to take care of certain aspects of district operations, and then those are inherently brought back to you either annually or if there is a change in scope, because sometimes you don't know. So that's again embedded. That is still in keeping with the procurement code that you did reference on page 10 of the procurement code. But those other pieces are built into the items that we do bring to the board, depending on what those are.
So I did not see that anywhere. My concern is, and it's not a matter of trust. We govern by policies, right? So the board could vote on the contract that's $50,000, and then there could be a change, and it could end up being $500,000. Now, Dr. Witherspoon most likely would come back to us, but right now, there is absolutely no policy that obligates the administration to come back to the board if there is a change. Zero. However, on the administrative rules, AR for policy DJ, which are expenditure of funds, within the district for administrators, it states the following. Each invoice will be compared to the applicable purchase order. So we're talking about purchase orders that our staff are placing, and receiving documents to ensure that funds encumbered were not exceeded and goods and services were properly received, quantity and price. A tolerance of 5% or $300, whichever is greater, above the original total of the purchase order will be allowed in the interest of processing the invoice, blah, blah, blah. The chief financial officer has the authority to approve invoices for payments up to $2,500 that exceed the purchase order. And then that administrative rule sets very clearly the guidelines. But the current policy, DJE, blah, 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 really does not obligate anything, and I think that is something that can be very easily fixed with standard language, but that would definitely put some parameters around changes in scope and dollar amount.
All right. Any other comments about item 8.03? All right. That being said, thank you so much. We're going to item 8.04, which is policy GCBE. GCBE, athletic assignments and supplemental pay. Is there any question or discussion about this said policy? Commissioner King, I think I see your hand.
Yes, I'm not sure what I didn't request for this to come on, and so I was wondering what the deal was about that.
I believe you did. I believe you did request this to be discussed at one of the board meetings. Yeah, it was.
Well, I think that the main issue that I had brought up was the issue of age. Unless somebody else reminds me of some of the discussion that we had, but we had the issue was really the issue around a couple of situations where assistant coaches were denied employment or employment assignment or whatever you call it, because they were not 21, and it was stated nowhere in either policies or administrative rules or anything like that. And so I had asked that the administration come back to look at this comprehensively, and if there needs to be an age requirement, that it be very clear that it follows labor laws, and also that it's smart, because we have a lot of kids. Well, I won't call them kids, but anybody who graduates from high school, and we say they are career ready, and if they're not 21, we won't hire them, even in a function where they are themselves very much structured and under supervision. I think would be really, one, sending a mixed signal, and two, we've been missing out on a lot of really, really good people. So that's where my request was. It wasn't specifically, I don't think, to that policy. Thank you.
Maybe I need to remind myself of this discussion. Commissioner Myers, I see your hand. We can't hear you, Commissioner Myers.
Right now. Great. I had too many screens up. I was just wondering, I guess more of what age Ms. King think that would be considered as a staff agent. If we state in 21, what age do Ms. King believe would be a good age?
Ms. Myers, it is for the administration to make the recommendation. I think that the most important one is to follow labor laws. Secondly, as far as I know, when someone turns 18, they're considered adults. And certainly once they have left our school system, they are, and graduate from high school, or have a GED, they're considered employable adults. And I would hope that that Russian one would find opportunities in that population segment, because some really great graduates. And we celebrate that every year at graduation. Thanks.
Thank you for your response. I just want the board just to keep in mind with early graduation and kids graduating early, some kids can graduate at the age of 16. So, just keep that in mind as well. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers. See Commissioner Harris, then Commissioner Clyburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to respond with this. As I heard it stated, being career ready. Just because a student is career ready doesn't mean that they are mature enough to supervise children. I would keep in mind that we are a learning institution and we have the care of children in our hands. So we have to ensure that those adults are able to take responsibility in watching and managing young folk. I think there even may be some requirements in some of these areas that require that they have CPR certification, as we were talking about coaches, etc. So we have to keep a lot of things in mind when it comes to, a person can be employable. We hire teenagers all the time at the fast food place, but roles of children is a little different when it comes to managing kids. I know it happens in all daycares. You can be of a hiring age, but at a certain age, they will not hire you because of the fact you're supervising and you're responsible for the health and care of children. So let's keep that in mind. And as I've shared with you all as a product of Richland One, at one point in time, we had high school bus drivers. That doesn't exist in this district any longer. And it doesn't exist for a reason, because I was in danger a whole lot as a kid because there were a lot of risks being taken, quote unquote, with the younger age. And that's nothing against a child, but that's just simply to say when you're doing hiring practices, which I have had a number of years of experience, it's not about you being hireable. It's about you being responsible to supervise, and whether or not you can take on the responsibility of having children in your care. It's about maturity. So we do have to keep those things in mind, because I know if I was a parent, I would not want a 16-year-old kid be teaching my child how to swim. I'm just going to be honest with you. Not unless they had the appropriate credentials. If you get what I'm saying, that's nothing against a 16-year-old, but it's just those things that we as a educational institution, we have to keep those things in mind, that this is not just, your mom and pop grocery store or a fast food restaurant. This is an educational institution that has the responsibility in the health and welfare of children in their care. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Clyburn.
So Commissioner Harris hit on a few things, and Commissioner Myers mentioned something that I hadn't thought about before. We know that children or students do, some of them graduate early, 14, 15. We've even heard of some cases at 13 and 14. But, if we have a blanket type of policy that would allow a graduate, a high school graduate, to teach and not have an age restriction. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, hold on one second. I love it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That was a slight threat, but so with that, keeping that in mind, we have to have some kind of a safeguard in place that protects our children. I mean, to me, this is a common sense type of situation, and there are some I tried to do a little quick Google search, but I remember hearing of certain positions, and you may have an agency that has an age requirement, but that same agency may allow children or employees of a younger age to be employable at or be employed at the same agency. And that student graduates, the actual graduate would still have the opportunity to mature and grow and learn, within the ranks. But I wouldn't feel safe as a parent. And I think we discussed this in executive session. I would not feel safe as a parent, with a child 18 years of age having the sole, responsibility of coaching or taking care of my child without supervision. So that's just my stance on that.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Commissioner King.
So, I respect everything you said. I mean, absolutely. So I agree. It should not be a blanket statement. We have the head coaches filter and hire their assistance coach, and we trust them in making good decisions. And if you happen to have a 19 or even 20-year-old who's graduated from Immersion One or somewhere else, who's in college and is doing great thing, is responsible and mature, why would we write that off? When they're not supervising, they're not the primary supervisors of children. That's not what we're talking about. We were talking about assistant coaches. So we have to follow the law. And that's why I really, we can discuss this, and I think it's a healthy discussion among board members. But my first ask was for the administration to come back with a recommendation, and a recommendation based on laws, on labor laws, to see what we can do. But sure, I mean, there are plenty of kids, or whatever you call them. I mean, at our age, we call them kids because they're 18 or 20 or even less than 21 or shy of 21, who are extremely responsible and who are great role models. And if they're going to be the tennis coach and the kids really respond really well, why would we write that off? So just like you said, we shouldn't make broad statements. I think that in the end, in the interviews and in the screening, all these things come about. I think that our head coaches make, for the most part, extremely good decisions, and they come through HR as well. So I was just asking for consideration of that, because I really do believe that if we decide to say, or we're not going to employ anybody under the age of 21, would be really painting with a broad brush a lot, and missing out on a lot of really good folks. And then I really want to know what the law says that we're able to do or not able to do. Thank you.
Commissioner Clyburn, I saw your hand.
So I just wanted to make sure we were not, having this argument, or not, I know we're not arguing, but having this discussion, in vain. So when we say, I don't think anybody is saying a person of that age cannot be hired. I don't remember that being said. So it's not like we're writing them off. When you write something off, you're saying no way, no how. I think we're saying, if you're below a certain age, you should not have, I don't think it should be an assistant coach status, because sometimes assistant coaches still have a responsibility over, the sole responsibility over a child or children without the head coach. There may be some circumstances where the head coach needs you to, go over here unsupervised and handle a student. I don't think an assistant coach below a certain age should have that. So I think it gets a little messy when you're saying an assistant coach can be below a certain age, but oh no, we can't have you doing that because you're below well, you shouldn't be an assistant coach. I think you can have some other title. You can be an assistant to the assistant coach, still learning the craft, but being supervised by the assistant coach. I mean, I think that's a great solution for this issue. I mean, it does not exclude a person below that age from learning and growing and being able to become an assistant coach. So I just wanted to make that point, because we're not saying that person cannot be hired. I didn't take that, and I wanted to make sure, if I'm mistaken, correct me. But
right, Commissioner Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you, Ms. Commissioner Clyburn, you brought up an excellent point because I don't think that's what any of us are saying. For instance, if a school wants to hire a secretary, that answers the phone and handles paperwork, that responsibility is totally different. We do have to look at the job descriptions of these individuals. And when it comes to supervisory roles of children, we have to be careful and cautious with that. As an assistant, as you stated clearly, when the main person isn't there, the assistant has to step in. The other night, the chair had an emergency call he had to take, and I had to jump right into action. And that's the role of an assistant. That assistant jumps in when the key person is not able to be there to do their part. And I think that when it comes to coaching, like I said, there are some things that have to be in place when it comes to the health and well-being of children that we have to be responsible for and accountable for, that we just have to keep all of that in mind. It's not to say that someone can't be hired, because we're not violating labor laws. We're just simply saying that supervisory roles have to be addressed a little differently, because you have the care of children in your hand, which makes us responsible and accountable to the parents of our district. So we have to make sure that we put those kids in a mature adult's hand. That's not to say that a 21-year-old is not mature. Sometimes it's best to be safe than sorry. So I commend Commissioner Clyburn and your comments on what you're saying. It's perfectly clear. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have any comments? Commissioner Myers.
Just real quick, I just want to add on to Ms. Harris, and just keep in mind, we're not knocking anyone under the age of 21. We do accept volunteers, and volunteer with experience for 2 or 3 years until you're 21 will make you very successful as an assistant coach. Just want to put that out there.
All right. Okay, Commissioner King.
So, Dr. Witherspoon, maybe if we added to this piece, I'd love to hear what our coaches are saying. They may let's go to the people who hire and who make choices and who know the laws and who know their craft and who deal with this all the time. Let's ask them if they leave, assistant coaches.
That would be right, and that would be HR who knows the laws. And actually, HR hires, not the coaches. Coaches make the head coaches make recommendations to HR. So the coaches don't hire; they make recommendations, and it is through the HR processes that things are checked, the screenings are done, the background checks, all of those things that are done.
But wouldn't the coaches still have, this is, and the reason I'm asking is because several coaches I know have had assistant coaches in the past that were under the age of 21 and really excellent. There is no policy that says that they have to be 21. It was not in the job description, So I'd like to know if
that has been a practice, and I don't want to go down an HR path, but again, thus that should have come through HR, and HR does not approve those, and that was in a situation that was mentioned previously that did not happen.
Well, you said a very important word, Dr. Witherspoon. It was a practice. It was an obscure practice to a lot of coaches. So let's put it in writing then. It has to be, because we govern by laws and
policies, practices, and procedures.
Exactly. So
and where there's not a policy.
That's
right.
fine. Whatever y'all come up with, or from this discussion, it has to be very clear. That's all.
Commissioner Harris, and then I would like to add to the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to just say this to Dr. Witherspoon. Dr. Witherspoon, your HR department has a very important role in this district. And that role is to make sure that they hire individuals that will best represent this district and the vision of this district. They have to use their own internal discretion after reviewing background checks, etc. on whether or not that person is capable of fulfilling a particular duty. And that is without discriminating because of disabilities, because they can't do that. But I just want to say that to you from an HR standpoint. They have the charge of interviewing an individual, making those decisions, and making it based on whether or not they qualify, whether or not they are capable of doing whatever it is the job description requires or outlines, as well as looking at their background or whatever else. So I don't want us to get in the weeds of we need to put it in writing to dictate straightforward that HR's got to say X, Y, Z. They have the latitude of making decisions based on experience and qualifications, and just pretty much a interview tells you a whole lot about an individual. So we want to be real careful with trying to tie the hands of the Human Resource Department that has the responsibility of hiring individuals that work with our children and work in this district. I just wanted to add that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Healthy discussion, and I think as the administration is listening, and even the community. Yes, I think we're definitely trying to grow our own talent. Richland One Strong means we want stronger people in our community that are part of our community and our system, which is why I want to highlight the CDL program. CDL program allows students to get some skills that makes them employable. However, I think, Commissioner Devine, if I'm right,
21.
they're not fully in the career until a certain age or licensing to operate a certain type of vehicle. So it is something that we look at in development of that career. But let me go more, Jermaine, to something that we do here at Richland One. I want Dr. Witherspoon to answer this question. Dr. Witherspoon, what's the minimum age of a substitute here?
21.
So a substitute has to be 21, come in and supervise students in an assistant role to a teacher who's not there. 21.
That's correct.
So we don't hire a substitute at the age of 18, 19, 20. They are 21. You know, as we consider this, you know, we're looking at something that is a review across the board. So if we were talking about substitutes, assistant coaches, I don't know, bus drivers, you know, this is something that we are going to be very mindful of, that the HR needs to listen to this conversation and consider what we do next. So, Dr. Witherspoon, I appreciate you adding just that small bit of perspective, that substitutes have to be 21 years old to supervise students. Not every day, just sometimes. So we can't reduce the role of an assistant coach. You know, that he's, you know, assistant coach, and that's okay. He still is still supervising some students in some capacity. Even a bus driver, Ms. Harris, I'm glad you brought that up. I remember when we had teenagers driving buses full of students. And I remember hitting my head, and I felt like I had a concussion because the bus driver hit the hill so hard that the bus flipped us in the air.
Oh, yeah.
That was a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
A teenager, 18, 19, 17. I have nothing against a teenager, but I know that as a school district, we need to be very mindful of the supervision of our children. All right, any other comments? Commissioner King.
Mr. Bishop, thank you for reminding me of that requirement on the substitutes. Dr. Witherspoon, are there any other positions for which there is an age requirement of 21? Now, CDL, I'll just put that category aside because it's not because we want to do that. It's 25. It's for insurance purpose, and no one can drive a truck category whatever it is. That's not a choice we make. That's where it's imposed for insurance purpose. But so what within the employment of the district, what other positions have an age requirement?
I want to say, Ms. King, and we'll have to check with HR on this, that it is at that 21 level. But I do know, for example, and I think one of the commissioners mentioned it, we do have student interns and students that work for us, but they're not in any type of supervisory role. But we do have students that work for us.
Right. I was just wondering, so substitutes, and it's in the policy, they have to be 21. So they're designated substitutes 21. What other position in the district requires to be 21 or has an age requirement?
Let me verify that. I don't want to give an incorrect answer. Let me verify that and we'll follow
Yeah,
up.
that would be really great.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great to have if we could have it by the time that we. I guess we take a vote on this. That would be great. Thank you so much,
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Harris.
Let me add this one piece too, especially after the request of Dr. Witherspoon. Labor laws and state laws and federal laws govern how HR hires. That's not a policy of the district. So we want to be real careful with that, Mr. Chair. Those are the guidelines that the district has to follow. When it comes to the hiring of individuals, we have to follow those laws. And to your point, which is excellent, substitute teachers must be 21 to supervise a child. So we have to keep those things in mind. It may shift, depending on what the job title is, but I think, that needs to be a conversation with HR. Let HR verify regulations and state laws, etc. But supervisory roles are a little bit different. So we want to be real careful with that. Just wanted to add that piece in there. That's not about a policy that this board sets. The board can't go and say we can hire 18-year-olds now, because that is what this discussion is supposed to be, right? Policies. Okay, we can't go set a policy, guys, that say Richard One can hire 18-year-olds now to supervise kids if teachers got to go to a bathroom break. So we want to be real careful. It falls along the lines of supervising children. You have to keep that on the table. And I'll say this. You may have to have a secretary go in a classroom and monitor a class while a teacher steps out. That's why I want us to be careful, okay? Because when you work for the district, you don't work for a particular school, you work for Richland One. And I know for a fact that since we've been in COVID, Dr. Witherspoon has had to pull a lot of his staff out of special projects into classrooms, okay? Am I correct, Dr. Witherspoon? So we be real careful with that, because we're in, now, let's not tie our hands. We're in COVID right now. Cafeteria staff may whatever, and we got to pull whoever to go in there. That person may not meet a age requirement to supervise children. God forbid something happens, we are liable. So that's what we've got to keep in mind, guys. Liability, but again, that is not the responsibility of the board to set a policy as to age, and that's what the conversation is supposed to be about. This discussion really is not germane to the policy, to be honest. But we just need to be real careful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Harris, I'm glad you said the word liability and association to what Ms. King brought up about insurance for certain licensing for drivers,
Right.
big vehicles, big transportation vehicles. You're right. It's going to come down to maybe even an example of what does insurance look like. Because we're talking about a risk. That's what insurance is for.
That's right.
Liabilities. And there's no greater risk right now that we're talking about than the care of children. So when we start discussing this, maybe what is the insurance liability?
That's right.
That we could be facing. So just wanted to add that. I did see Commissioner Claiborne and then Commissioner Vine.
So Commissioner Harris just brought up what I raised my hand to bring up. Commissioner King did mention, the insurance, and, insurance is supposed to cover you, for accidents and, if things happen. But I feel it's our responsibility to be responsible. I mean, to first, be proactive and not reactive. If we're putting ourselves in a situation where we're consciously making a decision that is it's our decision to make, but it could be one that we regret 500 lawsuits later. I mean, because this could be a situation where if that student were a little bit older, their judgment could have been a little more reasonable and a little more just more responsible with a more responsible and mature mindset. That could open up another can of worms that we don't want, because they could say, well, you all made this change in 2021 and now my child had this situation happen. But if that person were, we just don't know what the situation could turn into. And I just think we need to be careful with that and keep that in mind as well.
Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Commissioner Bishop. So I'm confused because we kind of been all around the place. So what policy specifically are we talking about?
Exactly.
We're talking about policy GCBA, athletic assignments and salary pay.
That's your name.
All right?
We all out of order, just FYI, as parliamentarians, we've not remained to the subject. So what is the ask? So let me ask this question. What is the ask of staff? Therefore, what is the ask of the board by whomever asked this to be added to the board agenda?
I remind myself that I think it was Commissioner King who wanted to discuss this as far as age, hiring.
Right. So, Mr. Devine, there were a couple of situations where young ladies were considered for assistant coaching, but they were not quite 21, and so it was in the sports area. And when I brought this to the board, I said I'd like to have a discussion on what constitutes an appropriate age for certain positions. And so I think I brought it up in that context, but I wanted the discussion to be much larger. And I had asked at the time that the administration come back and give us a presentation on what the laws say when it comes to age requirements, on what is feasible and what the district can choose to do regarding hiring and age. That was the original ask. Does that help?
Yes. What is that? Is there? I got a discussion. Is there something specifically you want the administration to do to bring back, and then subsequently you want us to vote on something? Is this policy hasn't been approved in this last round? I guess where are we with? And is it really this policy GBE or is it another policy? That's what I'm confused about.
No, Mr. Devine, you're right. It is not about this specific policy. I don't know how this one ended up happening. I mean, ended on the agenda tonight. But the original discussion was around assistant coaches, so sports. My ask at the time was because of this particular situation that happened in the sports context, I wanted to see if from an HR perspective, looking at laws, age requirement, etc., and line them up with policies, we needed to be consistent. And what can be done? I mean, once a kid graduates and is 18 years old and considered employable, can you refuse employment because it's going to be an assistant coach? I don't know. The policy that says substitutes have to be 21, is that based on labor laws, or is it just based on on a Region 1 choice, and can we really do that if we say, well, to be a substitute, you have to be 21, but to be a hall monitor, you have to be 30. To be an assistant coach, you have to be 26. I mean, that's what I'm asking for consistency across the board and very much clarity on what age requirements are for positions throughout the district.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, any other comments or discussion? Dr. Witherspoon, would you like to say anything before we exhaust this last?
No, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for the discussion. I think we have enough information to go back, take a look at this piece, and bring forth something for the board to consider.
All right, thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. I believe everyone that exhausts our agenda for the without no opposition, we will now stand adjourned. Have a good evening.
Everyone, have a great evening.
All right.